What if one call could shatter systemic injustice, turn a wrongful arrest into a nationwide reckoning, and inspire millions to stand tall against prejudice? This is the story of General Angela Holloway, her strength, her grace, and how she reminded us all, true power is unshakable, no matter the odds. The early morning sun glinted off the windshield of a sleek black government-issued SUV cruising down Highway 19. Inside sat General Angela Holloway, stoic, composed, dressed in full Army service uniform, complete with stars on her shoulders and ribbons that spanned over 2 decades of service. She wasn't just a general. She was the general, one of the highest-ranking black women in the history of the U.S. military, and she was on her way to brief top defense officials at a high-security Pentagon meeting. Her GPS softly guided her along the quiet road when flashing red and blue lights suddenly lit up behind her. She glanced in the rearview mirror, puzzled but calm. She pulled over, rolled down her window, and waited with her military ID already in hand. Two white officers approached, one with his hand hovering over his holstered weapon. The other was smirking. "License and registration," the lead officer barked. General Holloway offered her ID card. "I'm a Major General with the United States Army. I'm en route to a secured federal facility. My credentials are here." Before she could finish, the officer interrupted. "I didn't ask for your little Army card. I said license and registration." She glanced at the nameplate on his uniform. Officer B. McCrae. "Sir, this is a federally issued military license," she said, still calm. "And this vehicle is government property. You're making a mistake." Officer McCrae narrowed his eyes. "Don't play smart. You don't look like a general to me." Behind her, the second officer snorted a laugh. "Maybe she watched too much TV. Probably got that uniform online." And before she could explain further, McCrae snapped the door open. "Out of the car. Hands where I can see 'em." Confused but trained to remain composed, General Holloway stepped out. Her medals caught the morning light as if testifying to everything she'd earned. The officers didn't care. They twisted her arms behind her back and slapped the cuffs on tight. Her hat fell to the pavement. One officer stepped on it. A man across the street pulled out his phone and began recording. They had no clue who they were dealing with, but they were about to find out, because General Holloway didn't need to raise her voice. All she had to do was make one call, and it would shake their entire department to the core. The cuffs clicked shut with a cold finality. General Angela Holloway, still in full military uniform, stood in the middle of the highway's shoulder, her wrists bound behind her, her decorations glinting in the sunlight, now feeling more like targets than honors. Officer McCrae leaned in, sneering. "So, General Holloway, huh? Cute story. Where'd you serve? Call of Duty?" She stared straight ahead. No reaction. That was training. That was discipline. The younger officer, Officer Landon, hovered nearby. He wasn't laughing. In fact, the name Holloway stirred something in the back of his mind. A briefing? A news segment? It sounded important. McCrae," Landon murmured, glancing at the ID card she had handed over earlier. "This badge looks legit. She's got a DOD clearance sticker, too." McCrae shot him a glare. "You believe that crap? Anyone can print a fake badge. You gonna fall for that?" Landon hesitated. He didn't want to look soft in front of his superior, so he stayed quiet, swallowing the doubt rising in his throat. Meanwhile, General Holloway stood tall, her posture defiant despite the restraints. A bystander across the street shouted, "Hey, she's got military stripes, man. What are y'all doing?" McCrae ignored it, turning to the vehicle. "Search it." Landon blinked. Do we have probable cause?" She didn't answer me right. That's probable enough." He popped the door open and began rummaging through the interior. General Holloway watched silently as her government-issued laptop bag was flung to the pavement, her encrypted briefcase kicked aside like a piece of luggage at baggage claim. She took a breath. "Officers," she said, calm but firm, "you're detaining a senior official of the United States military without cause. I'm advising you now, this is a direct violation of federal protocol." McCrae scoffed. "You can advise whoever you want, lady. You're not in charge here." That was the moment she looked up, not at him, but toward the heavens, just for a second, as if collecting strength from every ancestor who ever stood with dignity in the face of disrespect. Then she spoke again, her voice steady. "Very well," she said. "Then I'll make the call." Neither officer reacted, yet. But in less than 10 minutes, that one phone call would trigger a cascade of consequences that would ripple from their precinct all the way to Washington, D.C. The moment was still, the kind of stillness just before a thunderclap. General Angela Holloway sat in the back of the patrol car, wrists bruised, her service cap lying crushed in the grass. Officer McCrae was still barking orders outside, telling Officer Landon to bag everything, while waving off the growing crowd of concerned bystanders. Inside the cruiser, Holloway's face remained unreadable. Years of commanding combat zones had taught her something critical. Power does not panic. She gently adjusted her cuffed hands, reached toward the phone clipped to her uniform jacket, and with a quiet breath pressed a single contact. It didn't even ring twice. "General Holloway?" came the voice on the other end. Crisp, alert, Pentagon dispatch, top-tier clearance. "This is Holloway," she said calmly. "I'm being unlawfully detained by 2 officers of the Crestwood County Sheriff's Department. I am in uniform, credentials verified, vehicle marked and cleared. I need immediate protocol activation." There was a pause, then the voice sharpened. "Confirmed. Response team will initiate escalation protocol. Stay secure." She didn't have to say more. The weight of her title, her reputation, carried it all. Outside the vehicle, Officer McCrae strutted like a man on a power trip. "You can go ahead and delete those videos, folks. This ain't your business," he shouted at the onlookers. One teenager muttered, "Bro, that is your business when you just cuffed a freaking general." Another bystander checked Twitter. The video had already been uploaded and was gaining traction fast. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, the radio crackled. "Unit 47, this is command. You are ordered to immediately stand down. You are detaining a senior U.S. military official with Pentagon clearance. Confirm status." McCrae grabbed the receiver. "What are you talking about? We've got some impersonator in a uniform. We're investigating." "Negative. You have Major General Angela Holloway in custody. You're to release her immediately. This directive comes from the Department of Defense." "Silence, then. A Pentagon liaison is en route." McCrae's face lost its color. Landon stepped away from the cruiser, eyes wide. She wasn't bluffing. Inside the car, General Holloway hung up the call. She didn't smile, didn't smirk. She simply waited, because the real fallout hadn't even begun. The wind had shifted. You could feel it in the air. Officer McCrae stood frozen by the patrol car, radio still clutched in his hand, his authority draining with each word that had come over the channel. His eyes darted toward the cruiser, where General Holloway sat as if carved from stone. Not smug, not shaken, just steady, just certain. Officer Landon stepped back from the SUV, now visibly rattled. "McCrae, what do we do?" McCrae snapped out of it, spitting his words like broken glass. "We wait. Don't say a damn thing until the brass shows up." But the brass wasn't who arrived first. 15 minutes later, 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled up, tires crunching on the gravel with slow, deliberate weight. 4 men stepped out. Not cops, not locals, federal agents. One of them wore a lapel pin that shimmered with the unmistakable seal of the Department of Defense. "Where is she?" the lead agent asked. McCrae puffed up. "We had a possible impersonation. She claimed to be a general." "She is a general," the agent cut him off coldly. "Major General Angela Holloway. Confirmed. Decorated. Cleared. And you've just interfered with a federal asset in active transit to a high-security intelligence briefing." McCrae opened his mouth to defend himself, but the agent was already moving. The back door of the cruiser swung open. "General Holloway," the agent said respectfully, extending a hand. "We apologize for the delay. We'll escort you the rest of the way." She stepped out, brushing the dust from her uniform, her dignity intact, impossibly intact. As she walked toward the black SUV, she paused just long enough to turn back. Her voice was cool, quiet, but unmistakably lethal. "You'll be hearing from my office, and from the Department of Justice." McCrae looked like he had swallowed acid. From the crowd, someone shouted, "Y'all about to lose your jobs." A chorus of laughter followed, but it wasn't cruel. It was righteous. It was relief. And as General Holloway stepped into the SUV and the convoy pulled away, a storm was already building behind her. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Because the video was spreading, the Pentagon was watching, and the reckoning was coming. By sunset, the video had crossed state lines. What started as a shaky clip recorded on a teenager's phone was now front and center on every major news outlet. A black woman in uniform, handcuffed on the side of the road, the stars on her shoulder glinting in the light, her voice calm, composed as two officers ignored her credentials and mocked her status. By morning, General Holloway had rocketed to the top of social media trends. Outrage poured in from every corner of the country. Veterans shared their fury. "That's a major general. You don't touch a star like that without consequences." Civil rights leaders demanded accountability. This isn't just disrespect. This is racial profiling in its purest form. Celebrities, senators, and even retired military brass took to the airwaves. One retired admiral said bluntly on live TV, "They didn't see a general. They saw a black woman, and they thought that meant powerless." The local sheriff's department issued a weak boilerplate statement calling it a misunderstanding. It backfired immediately. People weren't buying it. Not when the video showed her calmly presenting her ID. Not when the officers joked and laughed while restraining her. Not when the body cam footage, now leaked, showed McCrae stepping on her hat. The Pentagon broke protocol and issued a rare public statement. Major General Angela Holloway is a valued leader in the United States Armed Forces. We stand with her. The mayor of Crestwood held a press conference, stumbling over questions as reporters asked whether the officers would face suspension. Meanwhile, General Holloway said nothing. She didn't have to. Every time the footage played, every time her name was mentioned alongside words like decorated, honor, and general, the weight of her silence was louder than any speech. And in homes across the country, especially in the hearts of young black girls who saw her on their screens, her presence was seismic. She wasn't just the story, she was the standard. And as the pressure mounted and the calls for justice grew louder, the department's attempt to bury the story had turned into a public relations firestorm. Because America wasn't just watching, America was remembering. Inside the Crestwood County Sheriff's Department, panic spread like wildfire. The chief's office door slammed shut for the third time that hour. Inside, Sheriff Donald Briggs stood red-faced, clutching a manila folder filled with press clippings, emails from the governor's office, and a transcript of the Pentagon statement. Across from him sat Officer McCrae, now stripped of his badge and weapon, eyes defiant but clearly shaken. "You brought the entire damn federal government down on us," Briggs hissed. "Do you have any idea who she was?" McCrae snapped. "She didn't look like any general I've ever seen." "Exactly the problem," Briggs shot back. "You profiled her, on camera, in uniform, during a federal operation, and now we're hemorrhaging credibility." Meanwhile, Officer Landon had already lawyered up. His statement to Internal Affairs had been filed just before sunrise. It read like a full confession. "I had doubts. I asked if we had probable cause. I knew she was military, but I didn't speak up. I froze." That statement cracked open the department from the inside. IA investigators moved fast. The DOJ had launched an official probe. The governor's office had requested a full review of all traffic stops conducted by McCrae in the past 5 years. Civil rights attorneys circled like hawks. In the break room, other officers whispered nervously, avoiding the press vans now parked outside the building. "This is gonna be Ferguson 2.0, one deputy muttered. In less than 48 hours, the district attorney publicly confirmed that Officer McCrae was being investigated for civil rights violations, abuse of power, and unlawful detainment of a federal official. And word had just come down. The FBI was getting involved. McCrae's bravado began to crumble. His union refused to cover his legal defense. His neighbors stopped speaking to him. A billboard had even gone up on Main Street. "Respect black women, respect our heroes, we stand with General Holloway." The sheriff, desperate to save face, tried to schedule a press conference. But it was too late. Because just then, the Pentagon announced that General Holloway would speak publicly for the first time. Not with anger, not with vengeance, but with the kind of power that didn't need handcuffs to be felt. They held the press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., not a town hall, not a courtroom, a place reserved for statements that changed the course of history. Cameras flashed. Reporters from CNN, MSNBC, BBC, and black-owned outlets like The Root in Blavity lined the aisles. The room was electric with anticipation. Then the doors opened. General Angela Holloway stepped to the podium in full uniform, 4 rows of ribbons on her chest, silver star on her shoulder, posture straight as a blade, not a hair out of place. But it wasn't the medals that made the room go silent. It was her presence. She scanned the crowd, her gaze calm, her spirit unshaken. Then she leaned into the mic. "I'm not here to relive a moment of humiliation," she began. "I'm here to confront a pattern." Her voice was steady, but beneath it, fire. "I serve a country I love. I've led troops in combat zones. I've negotiated hostage releases. I've buried soldiers. And yet, on the side of a rural American road, wearing the very uniform that represents this nation, I was treated like a threat." You could hear a pin drop. This isn't about one officer's ignorance. It's about the arrogance of a system that assumes a black woman can't wear power without suspicion, that our presence is somehow fraudulent. She paused, letting the truth hang in the air. "I was not mistaken for a general. I was dismissed as a black woman." The crowd erupted into applause. She raised a hand, waited, then continued. "This isn't just my story. It's the story of black veterans pulled over and disrespected, of doctors in scrubs questioned in their own hospitals, of mothers asked, 'Is that really your child?' We are tired of proving we belong." The emotion in her voice remained controlled, but unmistakable. "Accountability is coming, not just in my case, but across departments, policies, and systems that have gone unchecked for too long." Then she ended with the most powerful line of all. "I carry stars on my shoulder, but millions carry scars from encounters just like mine, and we will be seen." As she stepped away from the podium, a reporter whispered, "That wasn't a press conference. That was a reckoning. And it wasn't over yet, because the consequences were about to get personal." By the time General Holloway returned to her base, the dominoes had already started to fall. Officer McCrae was officially terminated, escorted from the building without ceremony. No badge, no severance, no final salute. His file, once padded with minor misconduct swept under the rug, was now under the microscope of federal prosecutors. The Department of Justice confirmed civil rights charges were pending. His face had become the symbol of unchecked power, racial profiling, and the cost of arrogance. No law enforcement agency in the country would touch his resume. Officer Landon, though spared criminal charges, chose to resign. He issued a public apology, standing before local news cameras, admitting he lacked the courage to speak up. "I failed not just a decorated leader, but every black woman who's ever been dismissed." The sheriff of Crestwood County announced he would not seek re-election, and the city council passed emergency legislation requiring mandatory anti-bias training, federal military recognition protocols, and civilian oversight of traffic stops involving minority drivers. A small town shook to its core and forced to evolve. But General Holloway didn't dwell in vengeance. Her next steps were bigger. Within weeks, she was tapped by the Secretary of Defense to lead a new task force on racial equity in military-civilian interactions. Her mission: to bridge the trust between soldiers and the people they swore to protect, to ensure what happened to her would never happen again. She became a national figure overnight, not because she sought attention, but because she embodied something people were starving to see: grace in power, strength with humility, leadership without compromise. In schools, children now learned her name. Her image, standing tall, unshaken in her uniform, was printed on classroom posters under words like honor, resilience, and justice. A mural of her went up near Crestwood's town center, not just to honor her rank, but to remind everyone respect isn't optional. And though she never once raised her voice or made a threat, her calm call to the Pentagon had shattered careers, reformed systems, and sparked a nationwide dialogue. She was never the victim. She was the standard. And in the quiet that followed the storm, one truth stood unshaken. You don't handcuff history. It always finds a way to rise. In the end, General Angela Holloway's courage didn't just change the course of one night. It redefined what it means to be a leader. She didn't just fight for herself. She fought for every black woman, every veteran, every person who's ever been underestimated. Her legacy is a reminder. Power doesn't seek permission. It earns respect.